In the messy Wick, the two sides reached a temporary peace. After all, continuing to beat a naked man would make people think it was a strange hobby. "You mean, my father sent someone to kill you?" The Wick was eerily quiet. As the Wizard King, John admitted he hadn't expected the disarming charm to strip the Iron Man suit completely. He also didn't expect the other party to come to someone else's house like this, wearing nothing. John clearly remembered that Iron Man always wore clothes when transforming, so why was he wearing nothing today? Perhaps the wind made him sober up especially fast. Tony also quickly calmed down. Originally here to settle scores, now he was being settled with. Tony, naked, accepted the judgment of John's strange gaze. This made him lose face a bit. "Perhaps you, the young master of this family, don't understand your father's influence," Tony bluffed, slowly walking towards the sofa with a straight back, eyeing a blanket there, picking it up and wrapping it around himself as he said, "Your father, Watson Wick. He is the largest shareholder of Hammer Industries, and at the same time, he is the head of a global underground force alliance." Seeing that John didn't intend to stop him, Tony continued, "Under his management, this underground alliance has grown stronger and stronger, covering many industries. Weapons are just one of his items." Since he had been captured, Tony sat down generously. "By the way, what did you just use?" "Superpower. Magic." John didn't answer him, just frowned in thought. "My father wouldn't go assassinate you." "That's not necessarily true." Tony laughed wryly, seemingly surprised by the naivety of this underground president's son. Could you get me my helmet? I'm not wearing shoes, and I don't really want to step on, well, you know." Tony pointed to his Iron Man helmet. There was dust and glass all over the floor, he didn't want to step on it. This set of Iron Man suit was good in every way, except it required assistance to wear. It was also the first time Tony had been taken apart in battle, and he thought to himself, he needed to design a set of Iron Man suit that could be worn without assistance. John raised a gesture pointing at Tony, casting a spell silently. The helmet floated up and flew towards Tony. "Wow!" Tony caught the helmet, also surprised by this ability, and at the same time very interested in that gesture. "Jarvis, are you still there?" "I am, mister." Hearing this answer made Tony heave a sigh of relief. That strange lightning, and strange abilities, all these needed to be recorded. As he thought, he said, "Project Shield's data on Watson Wick." Tony shrugged and placed the helmet on the dusty table. "Since you don't believe me, you can see for yourself." The helmet's eyes lit up, projecting onto the wall. John turned his head to look, and it was all data about his dad. Watson Wick, highly dangerous person, file level 8. Formed an underground alliance with many forces, Continental Hotel. Closely associated with the warlord, Yuri Orlov, once appeared together in Sokovia, triggering the Sokovia coup and war. Hammer Industries investor, with close ties to mysterious forces in Russia. John looked at the pieces of data about his dad, his expression gradually changing. Finally, the data stopped on closely associated with the warlord, Yuri Orlov, Hammer Industries investor, with close ties to mysterious forces in Russia. Tony pointed at these two pieces of data and said proudly, "I believe you also watch the news, otherwise you wouldn't know me. The guy who attacked me yesterday was a scientist from Russia." He stared into John's eyes, trying to see emotions other than calmness, and said, "How did he know I was in Monaco? And how did he know I would go to the race?" "I can tell you responsibly." Tony stood up, walking towards John wrapped in a blanket. "Only he can do all of this, because he is the underground president, Watson Wick, a person who even presidents fear to offend." Accepting the impact of unfamiliar information, John raised his eyes to meet Tony's gaze. Mind-reading spell. In what John saw, Tony meant what he said. This showed that he truly believed this, it wasn't just an excuse. "My answer is still the same. My father couldn't be the one who assassinated you." John slowly shook his head. This made Tony very angry. He ripped off his blanket, revealing his body affected by palladium poisoning, and laughed in extreme anger. "Is that so? Then go tell your father not to worry that Tony Stark will affect his business. Because I'm about to die, my life is short." His last sentence was roared out. After knowing his death date, he had been under immense pressure. Even a genius like Tony Stark had to constantly endure torment in the face of death. He became reckless, reaching out a finger to poke John's chest. John unhappily raised his hand to grab the finger, his wand twirling flexibly in his left hand like a small snake. Before Tony could even react, a black wand stopped in front of his eyes. "Show some respect to my family, and to me," John said in a deep voice. "Don't forget, you broke into my house and launched an attack for no reason. Calm down, I think we can approach this matter rationally." Tony raised his hands in front of his chest, immediately conceding defeat and indicating he was not a threat. That's right, his Iron Man suit had been taken apart. What threat could he possibly pose? Tony took a deep breath. This feeling was truly frustrating. In the past, he was always the arrogant one, but today he was the one caught. The titles of genius scientist and billionaire had made everything smooth sailing for him. John told him to keep his distance. Tony stepped back and accidentally tripped over a raised carpet. He then tragically demonstrated what a picture of a naked man falling flat on his face looked like. That dangling thing was truly unbearable to look at. John covered his face and averted his gaze. I think my father might have some clothes left in the closet, Mr. Stark. Is that so? That's great. Tony stood up. He also didn't have the habit of being naked in front of men, especially when that naked person was himself. If John were a beautiful girl, he wouldn't mind. That's my sister's room. You'd better not go in. Oh, sorry. John watched Tony looking lost. He could guess that the person walking around his house wasn't Tony. Then it was someone else. The agent who appeared in London, and this person in the house. Perhaps it was the same organization. Could they also be investigating Dad? I wonder how much trouble Dad has stirred up. John was very melancholic, just finished praising Dad for making a lot of money, and in the blink of an eye, Iron Man came killing into the house. Praise him a couple more times, and will Thor come? Your father's build is similar to mine. Tony reappeared, having changed into a new set of clothes. But I suggest your father doesn't wear this brand, perhaps another. Okay, all right, calm down. Tony, who was about to complain a couple more times, saw John impatiently raise his wand and wisely shut his mouth. You still haven't told me, are you a superpower user or a magician? Neither. You can call me a wizard. John silently glanced at Tony and said irritably, You'd better leave there, before my sister comes home. I don't want her room to still look like it was blown open by a bomb. All right, I know a construction team that guarantees it will be exactly the same as before. Tony had been thinking about the assassination issue while changing clothes. The wind made him quite sober. Thinking about it carefully, he was too impulsive. John's abilities were strange. Having Whiplash assassinate him was completely unnecessary. Or is that underground president actually a kind father, unwilling to let his child be stained with blood? John ignored the brainstorming Tony and waved his wand again. Reparo. The blown open wall flew back together. Even the chair with broken legs pieced itself back together. After the magic swept through the surrounding mess, everything was restored to its original state, just as the spell's literal meaning suggested. The magical scene made Tony couldn't help but exclaim. If you opened a renovation company, it would definitely be popular. I'll take that as a compliment. John rolled his eyes at Tony, and his foot kicked the Iron Man suit part near his foot. This suit is pretty good, quite handsome. I'll take that as a compliment too. Tony walked to the table and picked up the helmet. If there's nothing else, I'll leave. Oh, John said with a half-smile. You're not going to pretend nothing happened again, are you? All right. Tony put down the helmet and asked boldly, How much? What? John said in surprise. Tony said, How much money will it take for you to let me leave? Anything that could be solved with money was not a problem for him. You've misunderstood. John raised an eyebrow and said, I'm not interested in your money. What I care about more is this. John's finger tapped the helmet. Tony's face sank. You want the Iron Man suit technology? If that were the case, he would need to consider how to kill the other party. What would I want that for? John said speechlessly, I want the data about my father and where my family went. That's it. Now it was Tony's turn to be surprised. You know, compared to his own smart brain, the SHIELD data that could be easily hacked into was not worth much. I still say the same thing, Mr. Stark. John looked at Tony and said seriously, My father wouldn't assassinate you, at least not this time. Kill Iron Man. John thought about it and decided against it. He would still need the other party to fight the purple sweet potato in the future. His gaze fell on the arc reactor on Tony's chest, and he tapped it with his wand, reminding him, I think you should have noticed that the person had the same thing on him as you. Hearing this, Tony looked down. Your family is thieves and butchers. The attacker's words echoed in his ears. His expression was not good. Because palladium poisoning. Tony's face was pale, and he could barely stand steady. John stared at his neck. Tony breathed with difficulty. Tell me you have chlorophyll juice at home right now. Unfortunately, I don't think anyone in my house likes that stuff. John enjoyed watching Tony stumble. The palladium poisoning in his body was nearing 90%, which was almost going to kill Tony. He was like a fish about to die of thirst, flopping on land. Seeing the strange look on his face, John kindly asked, "Are you going to tell me that you are about to die here?" "Yes, I'm really sorry." Tony leaned on the table with difficulty, not forgetting to talk back, "Unless you can get me back home in 10 minutes to replace the damaged neutron. Otherwise, I'll either be pierced through the heart by shrapnel or die of poisoning." Obviously, these were not good ways to die. Tony's reactor was originally meant to prevent the arrival of death, but it also brought death. He felt like he could already see his deceased parents waving in front of him. Thinking of his parents, his heart was not calm. Toxins were raging in his body. He said in a daze, "Father." His father, who was slowly approaching, bent down and slapped him across the face, making him grimace in surprise. "Are you still conscious?" John patted Tony's face, confirming his state of consciousness. The famous Iron Man dying in his own home, just thinking about it was exciting. However, to prevent the purple sweet potato from coming over later with no one to beat up, John had no choice but to act. He held a cup of dark liquid in his hand and poured it into Tony decisively while Tony was still in a daze. The strange taste was like a mixture of wetland soil and volcanic ash. 1 cup was enough to refresh the mind and make one scream. "My God, what did you give me to drink?" Tony's consciousness instantly cleared. He wanted to vomit but couldn't. It couldn't be fertilizer from that tree, could it? Tony pointed at the abnormally tall cactus in the house. John said contemptuously, "I wouldn't give you that stuff to drink." He lifted Tony's chin and watched as the patterns on his neck, which looked like Morse code, gradually disappeared. "You should be thankful my mother likes to cook, otherwise I wouldn't find a cauldron to make the magic potion." Tony also found that his body seemed to have recovered somewhat, and he looked at his chest. The shrapnel that should have pierced his heart did not continue to advance. The reactor glowed with purple light, and the core inside was replaced with a thin purple slice. All of this was as miraculous as Tony seeing his dad suddenly resurrected and kindly calling out his good son's name. John tapped the reactor and said casually, "Very good technology, but unfortunately it causes poisoning." He took out a pocket watch from his pocket and glanced at it. "The magic crystal in your chest should last until you get home." "Honestly, I'm starting to believe you." Tony stood up and said to John, "Why are you helping me like this?" "You are indeed not likable," John said casually, "but unfortunately, I just completed a transaction with someone, and it's not a good thing for a superhero like you to die in my house." John clapped his hands, stood up, and waved his magic wand. The disassembled Iron Man suit flew towards Tony and was put on him. Tony looked left and right, then looked at John, and said in surprise, "That's a very elegant way to put on clothes. I bet changing clothes is very convenient for you." "I hope you understand, Mr. Stark." John sighed and said, "You are really annoying. A word I say is worth millions of dollars." Tony spread his hands. His interviews were calculated by the second, but today he was being called annoying. "Thanks, little wizard." Tony got into position to take off. "I'll express the information over. You know what express delivery is, right? Don't force me to dismantle you again." John smiled kindly. "Expelliarmus warning." Tony crashed through the glass again and flew out. John looked at the broken glass, and he began to regret not putting Tony Stark's naked photo on the headlines. As for expressing it over, John held a USB drive in his hand and shook his head. "What era is this, still using paper documents? Who says people who learn magic must be isolated from the world?" John held the USB drive and decided to find himself a computer first. The Strategic Homeland Intervention, Enforcement and Logistics Division, abbreviated as SHIELD, which had always been strategizing, its director Nick Fury was a little flustered now. The scene that was supposed to be his to appear in had become uncertain due to the disappearance of that playboy Tony Stark. Motherfucker, did Tony Stark die somewhere? Tony had gone through a frenzy, seemingly giving up, which also told Fury that it was a good time to appear. He had known about the palladium poisoning for a long time, otherwise he wouldn't have sent Black Widow to infiltrate Tony's side and check his physical condition. Because of Whiplash, Black Widow needed to go to Britain for investigation. But in just one night, Tony Stark disappeared after having a party and fighting Colonel Rhodes. That was Tony Stark, a billionaire playboy, and the only son of one of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s founders. If he just died like this, it would be a huge blow to both S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Avengers Initiative. The black bald man with one eye had a gloomy face, urging his subordinates to find Tony's whereabouts. Black Widow, wearing a black agent suit, returned from a business trip, and they stood in the house that was left in ruins by the party fight. "Still haven't found him?" Natasha asked knowingly. Fury's face was unsightly, although his face was already dark. S.H.I.E.L.D. was invaded yesterday. Natasha knew who would do that and asked without surprise, "Stark, Besides him, I don't think anyone else could stroll through the Bureau's network like their backyard, Nick Fury said. We need to find him before he dies of poisoning, otherwise everything will be in vain. Compared to adding insult to injury, S.H.I.E.L.D. needed to provide timely help to win over this prodigal son. Just as Fury was thinking about where Tony might appear, the roar of flying came from the sky, and a person landed heavily. Superhero landing. The missing Iron Man finally returned home. I'll tell the police you trespassed. The mask opened. Tony looked at the two people in front of him and said to Nick Fury, I don't want to join your Superman boy band. His gaze then fell on the red-haired woman who had changed clothes and was equally sexy. Clever as he was, how could he not know the woman's identity now, and said, You're fired. Natasha raised an eyebrow and said, That's not for you to decide. Well, Tony was no longer the CEO of Stark Industries. And Natasha was the CEO's assistant, not Tony's. Tony, this is Agent Romanoff. Nick Fury was thick-skinned enough to maintain his composure in this situation. Natasha raised an eyebrow and said, When we knew you were sick, Director Fury sent me to observe you. You jerk, we are doing this for your own good. Tony was non-committal. He ignored the two and walked straight inside. After a lesson and treatment, his mindset was completely different from before, and troubled by the element problem, he saw a different hope. Fury and Natasha exchanged glances, puzzled by Tony's change, but now they proceeded according to plan and walked inside. You appointed Pepper as CEO, gave away your property everywhere, and let your friend fly away in an Iron Man suit. Fury began his manipulation. I didn't give it to him, he stole it. Tony retorted, making Fury find it very amusing. If Tony didn't give permission, even if the suit was put on, it would just be a piece of scrap metal. Tony, your condition is very bad. Fury reached out directly and touched Tony's neck. He had thought Tony was suffering from palladium poisoning and should be very serious now. But after seeing his neck, he was stunned. The poison that should have spread to his neck had now disappeared. Even the lithium dioxide syringe Natasha had prepared stopped. They stared at Tony's neck as if they had seen some rare treasure. This was completely different from the situation Natasha had reported. According to their calculations, Tony's palladium poisoning should exceed 90% now. The plan had changed, which was very unwelcome. Even stranger, who could resolve this situation? Fury's expression gradually became serious and he asked, Where were you for the past 2 hours? You want to know? Tony continued his playboy tone, lying on the broken sofa, and said, Went to Manhattan and had a fight with a guy holding chopsticks. The information he revealed was completely baffling. Fury's expression was uncertain. The timely help that had been prepared was now disrupted. When Natasha heard Manhattan, a strange look flashed in her eyes. Could it be because of the assassination attempt? Ivan Vanko, also known as Whiplash. He was rescued. Very efficient. Almost immediately after he was sent to prison for the attack, Hammer arranged for someone to create a false death through an explosion, a classic swap. As the person swapped out, Ivan Vanko naturally had to demonstrate his value. Hammer valued his ability to create a reactor identical to Stark's. He hoped that at the Stark Expo, he could severely dampen Tony Stark's spirit. Yes, I understand. Hammer was on the phone with someone. He said with a smile, Our stocks are growing, Mr. Wick. Stark giving up the weapons division is absolutely the most foolish thing. We can... What? Wait, I know I can't hide it from you, that scientist, okay, yes, I understand. Hammer's smile gradually disappeared, and the call ended. Turning to look at the delivered parrot, his expression was not good. Who would have thought that the major shareholder of Hammer Industries would interfere in this matter? He reached out and teased the bought parrot, then turned around, put on a smile, and walked towards the scientists who were studying the future of Hammer Industries. Evening. John had a new understanding of his dad. Why didn't I notice before that dad was involved in so many things? He rubbed his forehead. Couldn't there be fewer troubles during this vacation? Hammer Industries. AIM. PIM Technologies. Dad's investment skills are really online. At least the stocks of these companies are booming. Okay, at least I know Dad is safe now. The good news is that even an organization like S.H.I.E.L.D. is unaware of Dad's whereabouts. As someone who is often followed by agents, Dad should be used to these things by now. Looking through the files, John stopped scrolling the mouse wheel. His gaze fixed on an agent responsible for these files. Phil Coulson, using the alias Clark Gregg, infiltrated Hua Shang-Wick's subordinates. John stared at the name. It seemed Dad had mentioned that guy named Gregg. This person had been under Dad for at least 10 years and was also an agent. And the name Coulson, John had some impression of it. I didn't even know I was housing a mole, John complained, then searched for information about the feud between Stark and his dad. From the other party's tone, it seemed that besides this assassination attempt, he and Dad had other conflicts. Looking back, John found nothing. It was probably deleted by Tony himself. After all, letting John know about that feud might not be a good thing. Even the mighty Iron Man had his own little schemes. John scoffed and closed the laptop. My vacation is ruined. It was a rare holiday, but a lot of things were waiting for him to do. Fortunately, it wasn't urgent. Dad and Mom were together, and with Mom's skills, even if Hulk came, there wouldn't be much of a problem. What John needed to deal with now was the guy ringing the doorbell. Even through the door, he could smell something unusual about the other person. And it was similar to the female agent who had approached him. John opened the door, and the first thing he saw was a very standard bald head. John stared at the bald head for 2 seconds, then lowered his gaze to one of the person's eyes. A stylish leather coat, a black eye patch, a standard bald head. John looked at the person's shoes. The size and style of those shoes were the same as the pair that came in after his family left. His gaze fell on the person behind the bald head, a beautiful red hair and face. John chuckled, "London white-collar lady, welcome to New York." Natasha stared at John, wondering how he had crossed the Atlantic to get to New York. With a charming smile, Natasha flicked her hair and said naturally, "Aren't you going to invite a lady in?" "I'd rather call the police." John glanced around, but I suppose no police officer would answer. Entering the Wick house. He didn't know why it was so lively today. First the Supreme Mage, then Iron Man, and now the motherfucker from S.H.I.E.L.D. He hadn't met a single one in his previous 30 years, and now they were all coming together. I think Americans don't like drinking tea. John picked up a cup of black tea, not preparing any for the two in front of him. Nick Fury felt this blatant hostility. His single eye looked at John. "Your hostility towards me is not groundless. Can I know the reason?" "Very simple. A female agent pretended to be kidnapped at my doorstep." John glanced at Fury. "Another person came here sneaking around looking for something after my family left." "Excellent," Nick Fury applauded and said. "Then what if I said I was curious how someone from across the Atlantic could cross the Atlantic in an hour?" "Wow, that must be amazing magic," John said with a stiffly surprised tone, his expression unperturbed. "You can ask the agent lady. She crossed the Atlantic in 1 morning." Natasha, who had traveled by Quinjet, was naturally different from John. Nick Fury's gaze was full of scrutiny. Even S.H.I.E.L.D.'s information on John only went back to his birth certificate, showing how mysterious this person was. After he turned 19, he completely disappeared for 10 years. Even Coulson, who was undercover with his father, had never seen this person. Suddenly appearing in a residence in Manhattan, New York, and arriving by the most mysterious method. Full of mysteries, coupled with contact with Tony Stark. S.H.I.E.L.D. had to conduct an assessment of him. First impression. Young. So young that he didn't look like a 30-year-old, but rather as if time had stopped at his 19 years of disappearance. Secondly, elegance. Suit vest, gold watch chain, black hair full of mystery and aristocratic aura, reddish-brown eyes that seemed to change, making it impossible to look away. Every move was full of the unique temperament resulting from the fusion of his Slavic bloodline and Great Britain. Perhaps you haven't heard this in a long time, but after entering someone's home, even out of politeness, you should introduce yourself, John said indifferently as he put down his teacup, addressing the bald head staring at him. Also, staring at the host like this is very impolite. "Nick Fury," Fury grinned, showing a mouthful of white teeth, and took out his identification, Director of the Strategic Homeland Intervention, Enforcement and Logistics Division. "That name is quite a mouthful," John said. "Don't tell me you don't think so." "The abbreviation is S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D. The people under me prefer to call it S.H.I.E.L.D. Nick Fury waved his hand. John was not surprised. After all, this organization was the one that single-handedly promoted the Avengers Initiative. S.H.I.E.L.D. coming to him was simply because of Stark. "I think Tony Stark told you a lot of things." Saying this, Fury looked around. Everything here was intact, not like there had been a fight. "Some things, we hope you will cooperate." "Sorry, I don't want to cooperate." John refused decisively. He was here for a vacation and didn't want to get involved in S.H.I.E.L.D.'s affairs. He refused so decisively that Fury hesitated for a moment. "You don't want to hear what it is? In short, it won't be anything good. I knew that from the moment I saw this agent lady. My vacation schedule is very tight." John was already tired enough taking care of the mystical world for Ancient One during his vacation. "You still want me to get involved in other things? Even the Wizard King needs a vacation, doesn't he?" Nick Fury still wanted to say something, but his mind moved, and he changed his mind. He stood up and said insincerely, "Okay, I hope you enjoy this vacation." His sudden change was baffling, but John could feel that this bald head had ill intentions. Walking to the door, Nick Fury said loudly, "Oh, by the way, remember to say hello to your father for me. I have to say he caused me quite a bit of trouble." Trouble? John's mind stirred. If this trouble didn't refer to Tony Stark, then it was someone else? He watched Fury leave, and his wand slid into his left hand. Walking out the door, Fury whispered to Natasha, "Find an opportunity to approach him again. He doesn't have news of Hua Sheng Wick." Natasha uncharacteristically didn't agree directly. Fury looked at her in surprise, and said calmly, "He has some information we don't know, and a father will always come looking for his son. The Ten Rings, as a terrorist organization, would attack an underground president. There must be a bigger conspiracy behind it. Keep an eye on this kid. If the Ten Rings can't find Hua Sheng Wick, they might target this kid." Natasha nodded and said, "I understand. What about Tony Stark?" Tony was S.H.I.E.L.D.'s top priority. Fury pondered for a moment. "His matter will be resolved in the next few days. I will arrange for others to monitor here. You prioritize Tony's matter." S.H.I.E.L.D. didn't just have Natasha as an agent. Being squeezed like this made Natasha begin to understand John's feeling of not wanting his vacation ruined. Having a boss who exploits you really doesn't make you happy. Their conversation ended, and they left this expensive area. After they left, John gradually removed the disillusionment charm from himself. 10 rings. He was thoughtful. It seemed his parents were indeed very safe. Even S.H.I.E.L.D. didn't know where they were. To John, if it wasn't something directly life-threatening, it wasn't a big deal. Knowing that someone was targeting his parents, John wouldn't stand by and do nothing. From S.H.I.E.L.D.'s tone, it seemed the other party also had intentions of targeting him. Then let's just spend this holiday openly and frankly. He didn't believe that even if he walked around so brazenly, the other party would still be able to sit still, luring the snake out of its hole. A rare holiday, perhaps a little tension and excitement would be good. Since I'm seeking excitement, I'll see it through to the end. Early the next morning, he stood in front of the mirror and tapped his clothes with his wand. His suit vest changed into casual wear, and he changed several sets before finally settling on the brown one. I have to say that magic has a convenience that technology doesn't. This young face really easily causes misunderstandings. A 30-year-old man still sporting a high school student's face. A wealthy woman would pay $1 million to buy this maintenance method. Opening the garage, one luxury car after another awaited its favor. Unfortunately, John didn't have a driver's license. As a law-abiding good citizen, John would not drive without a license. Yes, he wouldn't. New York is a diverse city. You can see people of all races. Rivington Street. Guys with dark skin wearing thick gold chains and showing half there but gathered together, calling it street rap. Suddenly, a speeding sports car scared a young brother so much that his ancestral rapping talent was unleashed, breaking through his limits to rap here. A yellow Lamborghini, with the roar of its engine, stopped in front of a bakery. With the eye-catching design of the luxury car appearing, John, dressed in casual wear, stepped out with his long legs. Kowalski Bakery, I used to come here when I was a kid. His first stop, revisiting an old place. Standing at the doorway, John took a deep breath. The aroma of baking and the unique shapes of the bread attracted passers-by. The bread inside had strange shapes. For example, some looked like hairy monkeys, while others resembled rhinoceroses, platypuses, and dodo birds. Only John knew that those strange shapes were all based on the magical creatures from the magic world. This is an old shop that has been open for more than 80 years. In America's not-so-long history, this shop can be considered an antique. The craftsmanship of this shop has been passed down through 3 generations. It's impossible to verify why a Muggle's bakery would have magical creature shapes. Its loyal regular customers had long since gotten used to those shapes and tastes. The glass door of the shop opened, and a long queue stretched out. There was a reason why this shop could stay open for so long. Women liked the strange and cute shapes, while men liked its affordable price, generous portions, and delicious taste. Not long after John joined the queue, he heard the sound of someone running up in a hurry behind him. "May, hurry up." A 10-year-old boy pulled May's hand, his face red from running, and rushed to join the queue behind John. The boy's eyes tried to look over the long queue to see the delicious bread inside. The woman called May had long brown hair, a simple striped shirt, and wore rimless glasses, yet she didn't look unfashionable. With sufficient good looks and a hot figure that her clothes couldn't hide, the woman was slightly out of breath, causing the men in the queue to secretly turn around. John also turned back and looked. The boy was standing on tiptoes, counting the delicious bread in the bakery. Oh no, the hairy monkey bread is almost gone. He saw that there were only 3 left. The hairy monkey bread filled with jam was his favorite. The boy quickly closed his eyes and prayed that he would be able to buy one. Perhaps his prayer was effective. As the queue got shorter and shorter, the cute hairy monkey bread was still there. There were only 2 people left in front of the queue. The American lady at the very front was hesitating, making the boy's heart pound. He muttered, "Don't choose the hairy monkey, don't choose the hairy monkey, please God." He even brought out God. This made it hard for the lady not to give face. She heard the boy's muttering, turned back, gave him a friendly smile, bought a few rhinoceros jam breads, and left. The boy smiled and gave the lady a grateful look. Only 1 person left until it was his turn. And there were still 3 hairy monkey breads. He was already imagining himself and Aunt May each having a hairy monkey bread. Full of anticipation, he heard the person in front of him speak. "I'll take these 3. Reality was like a heavy hammer, smashing hard on the boy's young heart. The boy stared blankly as the 3 hairy monkey breads were put into a bag. The person in front even turned back and glanced at the boy. For some reason, he seemed to see a hint of mischievous amusement in that person's eyes. After buying the bread from the shop, John leaned against the luxury car and enjoyed it. It had a soft texture, and there seemed to be jam inside. He saw the boy come out. The boy who didn't get the bread he wanted didn't make a fuss. His emotional stability was surprising. Despite feeling disappointed, he didn't cause trouble for his guardian. Just on this point, the 10-year-old boy had surpassed too many children. The boy saw the person who bought the 3 breads and reluctantly looked at the bread in John's hand. Seeing his disappointment, May also felt unbearable. "Peter, wait for me," she instructed the boy. "Mister," May quickly walked up to John and asked, "May I exchange a bread with you?" John raised an eyebrow. He put down the bread he had taken a bite of and looked the beautiful aunt up and down. She couldn't really be called an aunt, after all. Compared to him, she was only about 10 years older. "Big sister. I can exchange, but why do you want to exchange?" He quietly looked at May. May smiled generously and confidently, saying, "I think you might like other flavors." "You really think of me," John chuckled lightly. "That's not a very good reason. But there was one thing you said that I appreciate very much." John handed over the bag containing the bread and said, "You came to me to exchange, not to take." "I like equivalent exchange," he shrugged and said, "so I agreed." When the boy heard him agree, he was overjoyed. "Thank you very much, mister," the boy said happily as he took the bag. "I'll give you the rhinoceros bread." Seeing Peter happy, May was also happy. She said gratefully, "Thank you, mister. Peter really likes this bread. When his mother was still alive, she would bring him here to buy it." Saying this, she looked at Peter with tenderness. In this city, she and Peter only had each other to rely on. It's nothing worth special thanks, it's just equivalent exchange. John raised the rhinoceros bread in his hand, shook it and smiled. "You also paid a price." May found this person very interesting. He kept talking about equivalent exchange. Just as John was about to say goodbye to this special mother and son pair, his trouble arrived. "Hey, nice car." A bald man with dark skin walked over with a unique swagger. "Now we need to settle the matter of you scaring my brother just now." The young brother, wearing fashionable half-butt clothes and showing his leopard print underwear, stood beside his big brother. People were implicitly surrounding John. May and Peter suffered unwarranted disaster. When those people saw May, they let out contemptuous whistles. They brazenly eyed May with unfriendly gazes. This was a very offensive thing. "Are you hitting on her?" The bald big brother chuckled and put his hand on John's shoulder. "Honestly, only I am worthy of her. I'm already calling the police." May pulled Peter away from the approaching thugs, took out her phone, and threatened forcefully, "You'd better leave quickly." "Hot, I like it." The thugs leered at May. John ignored the bald man and asked, "Is this place always this chaotic?" "No, this isn't Hell's Kitchen," May retorted. Hearing this, John looked at the bald man pressing on his shoulder and said seriously, "You heard that, this isn't Hell's Kitchen." "You should be glad it's not." The bald man leaned close to John's ear and threatened with a grin, "Maybe if you give me your car, I'll let you walk out unharmed." "Okay." John immediately took out his car keys and said to the bald man, "If that guarantees our safety." The bald man's mouth curved into a smile, just about to take them. Then John seemed to discover something and said in surprise, "Wait, look what I found." Under the bald man's bewildered gaze, John took a pencil out of May's clothes pocket. "May, you didn't tell me you brought this thing." His tone of slight blame made May confused. "It's just a pencil. It's not a weapon or anything." This is a pencil, John emphasized. Picking up the pencil and twirling it skillfully between his fingers, he turned and said nonchalantly, "Now, you'd better hand over all the money you have." These words, which seemed to have lost all sense, stunned this group of low-level thugs. "How many dishes did you eat to get this drunk? Are you already dreaming before it's even dark?" The bald man laughed in anger. "I think you're seriously mentally ill." "You might not believe it," John said with a serious face. "This thing in my hand is very dangerous." "Fuck." The bald man glanced around, saw no police, and was about to go up and teach John a lesson. The rotating pencil in his hand stopped, and John gripped the pencil in reverse. Moving so fast it left a blur, the bald man's outstretched palm was pierced through and pinned to the hood of the luxury car. Before the scream could escape, John leaned in and whispered in the bald man's ear, "See, you're connected to this car. Lunatic, you're a lunatic." The bald man screamed, attracting everyone's attention. John scanned the thugs who were stunned by this scene. He grinned and slowly, little by little, pulled out the pencil that was nailed into the car hood. The blood squeezed out from the wound in his palm as it was pulled through made the bald man scream again. Blood slid down the yellow car paint, leaving a shocking mark. The thugs were just bullies who preyed on the weak. They had never seen a truly ruthless person like this. They almost scrambled away, abandoning their big brother and fleeing. May and Peter were both stunned. The man who had seemed harmless just moments before turned into a paranoid, crazy lunatic in the blink of an eye. It made people involuntarily step back. "Don't be afraid, I don't eat people," Mr. John said softly in front of the bald man, although the joke wasn't funny. If he wasn't currently pulling out a bloody pencil, it might have made people feel refreshed. The bald man was so scared he could only nod, his mind blank, feeling like he would die the next second. Actually, it wasn't the pain that was unbearable. In that instant, fear was ignited by pain, creating 100-fold fear in his mind. The bald man's limbs were useless now. Even if he wanted to escape, his legs were weak. That pencil seemed very long, but in reality, it wasn't. As the pencil tip detached from his palm, bringing droplets of blood that shattered on the ground, the bald man slumped there. Handing the still-dripping pencil to May, Mr. John thoughtfully reminded her, "Wash it, and it can still be used." "Okay." May used 2 fingers, both scared and careful, to pinch the end that wasn't stained with blood. She decided that this pencil must be thrown away. Peter was already stunned. This scene caused a shock to his young mind no less than a nuclear bomb explosion. It was like someone suddenly told him that, in the future, he would be someone who shoots white sticky stuff all over the walls. Mr. John, however, looked accustomed to it, smiling, and gently explained to May, "Actually, I'm not usually like this. I just had a small surgery before that made me a little unusual." May was now a bit suspicious, wondering if Mr. John might have escaped from a mental hospital. But it wasn't good to say it directly now. After all, Mr. John had also helped her. Mr. John kicked the bald man, telling him to roll away from the car. The car, just driven out of Dad's garage, now had an extra hole. Mr. John thought it wasn't a big problem, probably just needed repairs. "No big deal." Mr. John opened the car door, ready to leave. Before he left, he said to the little boy Peter, who was full of admiration, "Study hard, you'll find that knowledge is a very useful thing." "That's so cool. How did you do that just now?" Peter quickly asked about that move just now. Mr. John didn't hide it. "As long as you have enough speed, even paper can cut through wood. Also, one question, is invisible beast bread really that delicious?" Little Peter asked in confusion, "What is an invisible beast?" Mr. John pointed to the bread he had eaten half of. "This guy is an invisible beast. That's awesome, especially the jam inside." Peter didn't spare his praise. "I think the invisible beast would be very happy to know it's so popular." Waving his hand, Mr. John started the sports car. Boom! Fire and explosion instantly engulfed him. The explosion swept up the 2 people on the street corner. Death did not come. May subconsciously hugged Peter, using her body to shield him, the flames burning their skin. May screamed out. She instinctively closed her eyes. But strangely, although the flames had burned them, there was no pain. Just some warm feeling. Like the warm air from a hairdryer, it wouldn't cause burns. May screamed for a long time, until Peter couldn't stand the suffocating love and patted May's arm with his hand. May, who had reacted, opened her eyes and saw that she was completely unharmed. The leaking gasoline accelerated the burning, reducing the car to a frame. But the person inside had vanished. Mr. John, who should have been in the car, was standing next to the 2 people at some point, holding a wand, his face calm. Getting used to the magic world, these attacks from muggles are quite sudden. He looked at the car. Well, no need to repair it, it's a total loss. It was probably rigged with a bomb when he bought the bread. Hope this wasn't Dad's favorite one. The impact and fragments of the explosion were blocked by his iron shield charm, and the flames were prevented from burning by the freezing charm. The moment he was sitting in the car, about to start it, he sensed something was wrong and used apparition to get outside. At the same time, he protected the 2 people who were caught in the blast. It's just that the bakery was a bit miserable, all the glass was shattered. The chubby store manager ran out, staring dumbfounded at the exploding luxury car. Mr. John walked up to the manager, casually pulled out a business card with writing appearing on it, and handed it to him. I'm very sorry, but after you calculate the losses, you can call the number on this card, and someone will come to fix everything for you. The store owner took the business card blankly, still not having recovered. Silver Hand Fashion Architecture? This was a name he had never heard before. He looked up. Mr. John and the other 2 had disappeared. The chubby store owner scratched his head and looked back at the bakery. An unexpected disaster. May didn't know how she ended up on another street, and neither did Peter. She looked down and saw that her hand was being held by Mr. John. She quickly let go of his hand. Mr. John apologized. Sorry for getting you involved in this. Who exactly are you? May demanded. John Wick. As for who exactly, you don't need to remember. Looking at the guy sneaking into the crowd, Mr. John said casually, originally, I should have sent you back, but now I need to follow someone, so I need you to follow me temporarily. May hesitated, because Mr. John had saved her. It was hard for her to suddenly decide that this person was bad. Mr. John originally wanted to send them back and use a memory charm to erase their memories, but he found the person who had planted the bomb in his car. In order to find the 10 rings who had attacked his family, Mr. John had to temporarily give up the idea of erasing the memories of the 2. We need to change our disguise. Mr. John waved his wand, and the clothes on Aunt May's body turned into a set of urban office white-collar lady attire. Peter's clothes were changed to red and blue colors. He changed into a black casual outfit for himself. This move of his left the 2 of them speechless. Is this magic? Peter kept touching his clothes, wanting to know how this outfit got on him. It was just like a fairy godmother. This is the best magic. Mr. John smiled slightly, admitting it without modesty. This was genuine magic. He saw that guy walking towards another street. Taking the big and the small, Mr. John followed. May was caught up in it, and for some reason, she was even a little excited. Are you an agent? 007. She and Peter were like curious babies, asking questions in Mr. John's ear. Are you talking about the one from MI6? Unfortunately, I am not. Mr. John followed the guy who planted the bomb. He did know people from MI6. After wandering around, they arrived at a fried chicken shop. That guy had just finished bombing someone's car, and then came to the fried chicken shop to change clothes and sell fried chicken. They're both frying. Do you really not distinguish between people and chickens? Then you're a magician. Mr. John observed the other person from across the street. Curious baby Peter asked, then you must be very famous in New York. I don't mind people thinking that, but in reality, I'm not, and I only arrived in this city yesterday. Mr. John invited May. Want some fried chicken? May tucked her hair behind her ear, shrugged like Mr. John, and said, I don't mind. Then let's get a fried chicken. The 3 people walked across the busy street, came to the fried chicken shop, and pushed open the door. Welcome. The car-bombing employee looked up, seemingly not recognizing the 3 people. Perhaps in his subconscious, the 3 people were already dead, or perhaps he didn't even know the people he bombed. Mr. John glanced at the menu and said, We'll have 3 fried chicken legs, and a portion of fried chicken pieces. Oh, and I also need a supersize fries. I think our Mr. Peter will love it. Don't buy him that, May objected. That's too much. It's okay, that's how it is when you're growing. The 2 of them talked like a married couple discussing their child, although the woman seemed more mature. The employee smiled knowingly and asked the customers to wait a moment. Mr. John came and sat by the window, with May and Peter sitting across from him. There's $1 million under your butt, Mr. John suddenly said to May. May was startled, thinking it was a vulgar joke, and let out a dry laugh. That joke is a bit stale. Mr. John also laughed. I guess that's his reward for killing 3 people, but hiding it under the chair is quite unusual. Seeing that he didn't seem to be joking, May reached down and felt the chair. Sure enough, there were some uneven places, looking like the imprint of stacked banknotes. Was there really $1 million under this butt? Mr. John's words also made her alert. She discreetly glanced at the fried chicken employee, lower her voice, and leaned closer to Mr. John, saying, "What should we do?" "Call the police. The police are useful, but not omnipotent." Mr. John saw the employee preparing the fried chicken, and he said casually, "I'll handle it." "How are you going to do that?" May asked in surprise. The employee brought over the fried chicken. Mr. John turned his head to look at him. His red-brown eyes had turned black at some point. The employee, completely unprepared, met the gaze of those eyes. "Tell me, who told you to bomb that car?" "What?" The employee immediately became alert when he heard this. He reached behind him, but didn't find the pistol hidden there. Instead, he touched cold scales. He took his hand out and saw that his arm was wrapped by a patterned snake. In an instant, he seemed to return to his childhood, in a discarded concrete pipe, where he encountered that cobra. The shadow of his childhood attacked him, making him let out a terrified scream. Immediately after, the bodies of the 3 people in front of him turned into snakes, surging towards him. This Mexican employee accidentally slipped, his face full of terror. He scrambled back, trying to get away. He touched a stool, wanting to lift it for a sense of security. But after picking it up, he realized something was wrong. The high stool felt cold and scaly. Looking up, he was holding a thick, strong snake in his hand. The snake opened its mouth eerily and asked, "Who told you to bomb that car?" Snakes filled the shop, overwhelming the employee. He was almost buried. He shouted, "It was Simon." The snakes stopped surging towards him. The large snake continued to speak in human language. "Who is he?" "A boss in Hell's Kitchen. He found me this morning, gave me some money, and told me to plant a bomb in a car." The employee begged, "I had to do it, otherwise he wouldn't let me go." "But I see you enjoying it." The large snake's black eyes seemed to see through people's hearts. "Just like every time you bomb someone to death, you carve a mark on the coat rack at home." The employee became more and more scared when he heard this. "Let me count how many you've killed. 13. That's not a lucky number. Adding today's, you have a great sense of accomplishment." "No, it's not like that." The employee wanted to argue, but the snakes had already completely engulfed him.